Okay, here we are. Happy Saturday, everybody. Let me just minimize this window. I have too many windows open here. Welcome to day 22 of Video a Day Debruary. I can't believe the month is almost over. I actually survived this 29 days of a video every single day. Today's guest is Fran Banting. She's a personal growth expert and is all about getting results in her work in business and in personal development. She's here to kind of go over a few things I found really interesting. She has a doctorate in metaphysics and psychology. And what she's going to be talking to you about is um, her studies in human behavior, personalities, and what motivates people to do what they do and how to make them get better results. And I thought, now this is very interesting because when you study the human mind and why people do what they do, that's an amazing feat because most of the time they don't even know why they do what they're doing. So, Fran, I want to welcome you to the show. And feel free to say a few words to kind of augment my very brief introduction.
Well, it's great to be here, Deborah. Thank you for having me. First of all, it's a doctorate in philosophy,
Oh, I'm
actually
sorry.
specializing in holistic life coaching. So what I do is I teach people how to get results by just changing one thing, and that's the way they think. And you'd be surprised how we're responsible for all the results that we're getting in our lives. And until we take ownership of that and start realizing how much control we actually have, then the results start happening. So as soon as you're aware of that power that you have, then you can start creating the things you want in life rather than trying to live with the things that you've attracted that you don't want. You can start thinking correctly and bringing in what you really do want. And so that's what
Ladies,
I've
if
been
you
doing.
notice, this is our overriding theme from our
Yeah.
guest this month. You are responsible for yourself.
Hmm.
There's no third party, no invisible being out there that's making these things happen to you. You are doing them to yourself. And we have to keep driving that point home so that people can feel less powerless, like, leaf in the wind. That's what I'm noticing. There's kind of a victim mentality. And I was really hoping that you could address that too.
Well, in fairness to people in general, we have to realize that we've all been programmed, and a lot of our programming was done before we could even think for ourselves. And everything that was taught to you, and you were sort of think of it as being trained, you were taught by your parents, and you were taught and shown how to be and how to act and how to accept things, how to cope with things, how your parents did it or those that raised you. And it could be teachers as well, and friends and family. And you've taken that on, and now you've grown up and you're in a different life and you want different things, but you still have that same programming. And that programming that was given to you when you were a child may not be serving you now. So the key is to figure out, what programming do I have that's not working for me, that's keeping me from getting me to where I want to be? And once you can figure out what that is, you can move it aside and then start being the person and attracting the things you want in your life. But until you figure that out, you're basically going to stay stuck in that same programming, and you're going to just be going around in circles, and it's going to feel like you're spinning your wheels and you can never get ahead. And that's usually what it is.
Did you find are there any specific types of reasons that people are so resistant to doing this work and making these changes?
You mean doing the work of personal development?
Yes. And, getting like, you're saying
Hmm.
they stay stuck and they need to examine those,
Hmm.
that early programming. There seems to be, I've noticed some resistance to that sometimes.
There's a lot of resistance. And when you think about it, you can go back to think about when you were in elementary school. Everything you did, every single course that you were taught, every single instrument, you were constantly shown what you were doing wrong. You were never given praise for what you did right. We always looked at those big red X's at what we had wrong. And so we developed this judgment, this way of being judged all the time, and this fear of being judged. And it was all programmed in us from, don't do that, don't spill the milk, don't do, be careful, don't drop this, all this negative programming. And when you went to school, it was just enforced with, look what you did wrong. You didn't make it to this level. You had 2 wrong. Who cares about the 98 right? You had 2 wrong. And because of that, you didn't get an A. And there's a lot of focus on this negative. So we actually are raised on the negative programming.
Oh,
And
how
we're afraid of
sad.
being judged. And you think about it. Think about when you were small, you think about all the things you did in your life. Everything that was told to you was what not to do. How often did you hear things like, here's a wonderful thing, you did this right. Look how great you were at doing this. We don't get that. Teachers do it, and parents do it. But to find children that have been raised like that through their entire lives, it doesn't happen very much. It's probably only about 5% of the population. So here we are. We know we do everything wrong. To look inwards and to have to look at ourselves and to admit our failures and the things that aren't working is pretty hard. We've had enough things given to us. We're on defense mode now. And now we go through life looking at other people and judging other people and checking how we fit in with those other people. So we've developed this habit of watching other people and seeing what they're doing, and then stepping back and saying, how do I fit in? Am I okay with this? Do I fit in with this? Am I good enough? We always have that, constantly looking outwards to see where we stand. If you really want to move forward, you have to get to a point where you have enough faith in yourself, enough trust in yourself. And what's funny is most people do, deep down inside, they're saying to themselves, I know I can do this. I know I'm smarter than that person. I know I have more talent than that person. We're thinking it, but there's no way we're going to act on it. And if we would just take that and say, you know what, I know I've got something in here. I got to figure out how to get it out. And the only way to get it out and to find it is to first go inwards and look at you. And
Do you think,
what?
Fran, that this women are impacted more by this kind of, don't, you're not good enough than males are?
Well, I can only speak for my generation, and I grew up in the generation where moms stayed at home and raised the children. And I was in that era where I was, trying to get a career as well. And I was one of those women that balanced career with children. And I always struggled with that, that guilt, of not being at home and not raising a family like my mother did. But, I was also career minded. And I also knew that financially, these days, in most cases, 2 people have to be working in the household. So I struggled with that. And I was in that era where women were subservient, even in the workforce. I was in the cusp of it. So I witnessed a lot of the changes. And so to have that ingrained in you from when you were a child, that's pretty different. But the women of today, the children that grew up with my sons, I have 3 sons, I don't have daughters. But I do know that the women today do not have that same, subservient push that I had growing up. So I don't want to say that mentality is still there, but I do believe that women have a harder time asserting themselves. There's that line between femininity and assertiveness, and they're always afraid to cross it. And, I find that there are still men out there that will use that as an excuse, that when there's an assertive woman, that she's not being very feminine. And that's not true at all.
Oh, we hear that so much. Now it's so funny you mentioned that, because I just talked about that with the slides and everything, showing the traits that are traditionally viewed as masculine and the traits that are traditionally viewed as feminine. And, you could see things like assertiveness was over on the masculine side.
Right.
So a lot of women, the guys don't want the women to be that way,
No.
just compliant and pleasing and cooperative.
Well, they're used to their mothers, right? The first woman that ever was in their lives was their mother, who was nurturing. So for them to suddenly be in a room, with women who aren't there to nurture you, it's a little confusing. So for men, it's the same thing. It's just the way we're raised, and depending how you were raised is how you're going to be with other women. Depending how men were raised. Like I said, I had 3 sons. And, I don't know how many times I sat them down and about respecting women. And, it's your role to, no matter how the woman is, it's your role to step up and be respectful. It's all how they're raised. So,
I see.
yeah.
Okay, those of you who are moms of sons, take note. Just you don't want your son to grow up and be raggedy. I just said we want to have sons that, like everyone in the family, can be proud of. From the grandparents, and aunts,
Mhm,
uncles, the other
mhm.
siblings. And that
Yeah.
that takes the parents are at the helm of that ship. So
Well,
tell.
my
Oh,
story, I was just going to say, my sons grew up with me working all the time. So for them to be around women that work is quite normal for them. See, for them, it's a normal way of life.
see, my brothers had we had three, and I'm the only girl. But my mom was some of both, and
Hmm.
so when we were very young, she was at home. But by the
Hmm.
time my youngest brother went to middle school, she started working,
Right.
and I
That's
was in,
great.
in in high school, and I could cook some by then, and my older brother could cook some, and so we would take turns doing meals and just kind of everybody kind of
Yeah,
pitching in once she stepped out
that's
of those
great.
shoes. We stepped in. So it
Yeah,
was a cooperative venture for the whole
that's
family. And I look at so many people, in my age group that look at me like I'm a Martian because they can't believe that, my parents at that, in that era were so in their minds were just so advanced, and the
that's
boys learned to
perfect.
cook and sew and
Hmm.
clean, and I learned to handle tools and paint and do sheetrocking. It was a
Look
very
at that.
interesting childhood.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
great.
it is very different. So
Hmm.
tell me, Fran, when we have young ladies who don't seem to be able to understand that they keep choosing the same kinds of guys over and over, and the theme seems to be emotionally unavailable, is there some trick? I mean, something that there's something going on in their past that might trigger that kind of selection in men?
So you're saying that the women are finding men that are unavailable? Or sorry,
Yes,
what's that?
they keep it's like a cycle that they're in, and all the guys that they get with ultimately are, keep them at a distance, and they're emotionally unavailable. So the
Mhm.
women are hungry for some kind of intimacy that they're not getting, and the cycle is repetitive. So there
Right,
must be something going on, some kind of common ground that
right.
I just don't see. And I was
Okay.
wondering if you did.
Let me put this in another way. I, when you were a small child, and so I want you to think right now. Let's say you have some cereal and you want to have some milk, and you're out of milk. So you're going to go to the store, and you walk into the grocery store, and you know how usually the milk is at the back of the store. And you're walking through the store, and when you're walking through that store, you're probably thinking about things like, what kind of milk should I get? Should I get a big one, a small one? Am I going to pay with my debit card? Should I get some bread while I'm here? And you're thinking about all these things that you have to get while you're on your way to get the milk. Grab your milk, you go to the counter, you put it on the counter, and you pay for it, and you walk out of that store and you go home and have your cereal. Now, at any time when you walked in that store, did you ever have to say to yourself, don't steal that chocolate bar, don't steal those chips, don't grab that Twinkie, don't start eating that sandwich? Did you?
No.
No, well, I hope not. But chances are you were thinking about the milk and getting your milk and going home. That's because when you were a child, you actually reached for that chocolate bar. You reached for all that candy, and you were probably putting it in your mouth, but your parents were grabbing your hand and they were saying, that's stealing. Don't take it, don't take it, don't take it. But now, as an adult, you're not even thinking about it. You're acting a certain way, you're functioning a certain way, you're doing things You're actually walking through stores and paying for things and making breakfast, but nowhere in the back of your mind are you thinking about stealing a chocolate bar. Now, the same thing happens with programming, with how you feel in relationships. You're raised with your parents. Your parents are showing you every day, this is how a man shows affection to a woman. So if your father was very affectionate with your mother and you're seeing it every day, every day, every day, dad kisses mom goodbye every day at the door, chances are when you get married and your husband goes to walk out that door, you're going to go, wait, where's my kiss?
Right.
It's programmed in you. It's part of you. When women are attracted to something they cannot have, chances are that was how they perceive the feeling of love with a man. So if you look back into your childhood, was there a time where you felt that abandonment or that a man leaving you or you not being able to have that father figure was part of your life? And chances are it might be in there somewhere. And what happens with our programming is that we start relating that feeling as love. So if I'm not saying that's always the case, this is
Right.
just an example. So for example, if your father did abandon your mother and you saw this over and over again, you're going to associate that as love or the feeling of a relationship. This is what a relationship means. Mom's always going after what she can't have. It's always, you can go back and look at what was in your childhood. Now, that's just an extreme example, but it also goes to your self-esteem. Now, a woman can have very low self-esteem where she doesn't feel she's very valued.
Right.
And if she doesn't have any value in herself and somebody just gives her 1 ounce of attention, that's going to be an enormous amount of attention. And in her mind, that may be that feeling of love. So a married man, for example, could give you some attention and you're going to see it as love or, this man really wants me because, he showed me some attention. But somebody with a lot of self-esteem, a healthy self-esteem, a boundary wouldn't even take that. They wouldn't even accept that gesture. So it all depends where you are on the scale. Is it something that's been programmed in you since you were a child? Or is it a level of self-esteem that you need to work on? And I always go back and I always want people to, before you're looking for a partner, I think it's so important that you first look at yourself, again, go inwards and think about what is it that a partner would want in you? Instead of you trying to figure out what kind of man you want, I want a guy that's going to do this and he's going to be like this and be like this. Well, flip that a bit. And what kind of partner do you want to be? What are you in this relationship? What kind of person are you? And until you know yourself, you really have no business going out and looking for a man because you don't know what you're looking for. You're going to be relying on environment to come to you or whatever's going to come your way instead of you saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to attract, and this is what I deserve, and then going out and looking for it. Does
Oh
that
boy,
make sense?
this is totally. But I just and this is not a but. This is more like a and. We circle back to what I was saying, about the struggle that it will be for many people to be that honest with themselves
That's all
and
it takes.
to dig into their past like that, because most likely they'll be bringing up some, a lot of childhood wounds of abandonment and hurt
Yeah.
feelings and being ignored and things like that.
Yeah.
So do you have any, where should somebody start on that journey, Fran? That's some heavy stuff.
It is heavy stuff. And usually my very first, whenever I have a client, the very first session I have with them is where I ask my 50 questions. And most of the time they know the answer. We all know the answer. You lived it. You lived it. You know where you were and what happened when you were a child. You know the men that were in your lives. You know exactly your brothers and your cousins and the male role models that showed you how, what to expect from men. And most of the time it's good. But, you could have a negative experience. I had a father that was very quiet, and he just never talked. He watched a lot of TV. But for me, that was, he wasn't paying attention to me. And
Right.
so, it seemed that all the men that I was attracted to always had a little bit of, they weren't that talkative. And then I realized one day, I thought, wow, these guys are all just like my dad. They're not very talkative. They're quiet.
Horrors.
I didn't even realize I was attracting them, but I was. And so but when you pay attention and just be honest with yourself and say, yeah, you know what? I grew up with 3 brothers, and my brothers were always like this. And I find that I like having men that, are garage guys that work on cars. And I'm attracted to that, the guy that's, gets his hands dirty, or, I don't know. But we all grew up with different experiences. But I always like to use the example of when people say they don't want to look at themselves and not want to understand themselves. I always use the example of, let's say you wanted to buy a pair of shoes, or let's say you want a pair of Nikes, okay? And you decide you want to buy these Nike shoes. So you go to the mall, and there's this huge mall. In Canada, we have this West Edmonton Mall. It's like 2 or 3 floors, and it just goes for a mile long. And it's got like sometimes the stores repeat themselves because it's just such a huge mall.
Oh my
So let's
goodness.
say, so let's say you go to the mall and you decide you want these Nike shoes, and you want them to be white, and you want size 8, and this is the make I want to have. So you go to the mall and you are looking for that Nike store. You know what you want, and you've gone to this mall to get it. And when you get to the mall, though, the mall people know something. And what they've done is they've put this big sign right at the entrance when you come in. And it's a directory, isn't it? You go in the mall and there's a big directory, and you say, oh, Nike. And you go find Nike, and then there's a map, and it's going to show you exactly. It shows you exactly where the Nike store is. But there's one important thing about that sign, and it's got this big red dot, and it says, you are here. See, without knowing where you're standing in that map, how do you know where to go?
Oh, that is a brilliant
How do you know
analogy.
where to go? But if you know exactly where you're standing, you know exactly, and you know exactly where you want to go. The line goes here. Oh, I go here and here. There's my destination. Until you know your exact spot where you are, that journey in that mall isn't going to be very fun. If you don't know where you're standing, you're going to walk through the mall and you're going to ask people, should I buy? Do you know where the Nike store is? Oh, you don't want Nike. Go to Adidas. They're over here and they've got a sale. Oh, you don't want Nike. They're too expensive. Go over here and, buy this brand. Did you go to Walmart? They've got these shoes over here. And people are giving you their advice for what you originally went there, knowing what you wanted, knowing why you wanted that product. You went there for the sole purpose of getting that. But now you're allowing your environment to dictate where you're going to go in that mall and what to buy. So how is it different in a relationship? Without knowing where you stand, who you are. Somebody, you can know exactly what you want, but you're not going to know how to get there if you don't know who you are. Because you're going to run into obstacles. You're going to run into, things that are going to block you on your path to your way to getting this, whatever want it is that you're trying to attract. But when you understand who you are, you'll know when to move, when to make decisions, which route to take. It's all clear because you know.
What did you think is behind is something I've noticed, and it seems like the guys have this down. A woman will say, no, I don't really want to do that. I don't like that. That's not really my preference. Something, it could be something rather food. But whatever it is, she doesn't want it. And then the pounding starts. Oh, come on. Sure you do. Just try it. You'll be sorry. It's great. This and that. But, you should try everything. So he starts, beating on her. So eventually most women give in. I've noticed that. Why do women fold like that? what's the struggle with staying, keeping your boundaries in place and maintaining your no?
Because they don't have boundaries. They don't know their boundaries. You see, if I don't like meat, if I don't want to eat pork, I'm not going to eat pork. And if a man says, well, look, I barbecued this pork chop for you. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But I don't eat pork. I don't like it. I don't want it. You want me to fit in this dress to look good for you, but now you want me to eat pork. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So think of it as, why is it so important for the man to have you do that? See, it has nothing to do with you. What's with him that he's not accepting your answer? See, when you look at two people, and I always like to think of them as this dance, and a relationship should be like this, just a nice, easy dance. And think of it as if you were a tree. And the minute you're like this, and he's down, pushing you down like this, that's overbearing. And you're now on your back heels in defense mode. So what happens when you're in defense mode? You're not happy. You're not balanced. You're off balance. You're not feeling good. You want to be back up here. You want the respect. You're both doing this nice level dance. And the same with him. You don't ever want to be overbearing to a man and making him feel defensive till finally they push you away and say, just give me space. You want to always be like this. So if she says, no, I don't want that, why is he doing this? There's an issue there. It's not just her allowing it to happen. It's him forcing it. So this is usually, you've got to go deeper and understand the control issue of the man. Why is it so important for her to follow everything he says? And why is she so quick to, do something she doesn't want to do? It's actually both parties. I don't blame just the woman.
No, I'm not going to blame her, but see, my thing is like, you have the other option to, leave the situation, get away from this guy and not, just basically cut him off so that he can't do that. But I don't know. I was just curious. I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't see it as needing to cut him off. For me, it's more of a communication thing. I just see it again. You're just your dance is out of whack a bit, and we just got to get you two back here again. And sometimes it could just be you standing your ground and saying, why is it so important for you that I do this? And sometimes they'll just be like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I just thought you'd like it. Why are you so offended that if I don't do this? Then it could be him that has a self-esteem issue. An interesting thing about a lot of the men that I work with, do you want to know what the number one issue most of them have?
I'm very curious.
Confidence.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I believe it.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, when you have somebody with low confidence and, if for them having a woman, accept everything they say is important, then they could be overbearing. You always have to look at every relationship and however any person was raised and their experiences. It's different for everybody.
Well, let me ask you, if you ladies, they're very wowed by you. I want to let you know they are loving your analogies and how you explain things. You're getting thumbs up, Fran.
Okay.
So if you have questions, ladies, you have a question you would like me to ask Fran, you can put it in the chat room. Make sure you tag my name, my full name, so that it will highlight. And then I will ask her your question. So she'll be here. We get the guests for 45 minutes. So we have about another 15 minutes. So think of your question and then just post it in the chat and I'll ask you. So Fran, what made you get interested in looking at people and what they, how they respond? I mean, it's a very interesting, interesting field of study. Let me put it that way.
Isn't it interesting?
What made you,
so
take that path?
I've been studying it for over almost 25 years now. And the way I started was I got into real estate this was about 30 years ago. I got into real estate. And I couldn't understand why, we had about 30 realtors in the office that I was in. And there was this middle of the road group. There was about 20 realtors in the middle that were just middle of the road. They did a deal here and there, nothing spectacular, but they were in real estate. But then on either side, we had these two other groups. We had 4 or 5 realtors that were the top realtors, and they did almost 80% of the sales for the entire office.
What?
And yeah, and the rest all were the remaining 20%. And then we had this other group where no matter how hard they tried, how much work they put in, they couldn't sell a house if their life depended on it. They were even handed referrals and they couldn't sell a house.
Oh
And
boy.
so in my mind, the way I grew up was you study, you get degrees, and then you'll be successful. So when I looked at the successful realtors, I just assumed that they had degrees, that they were, studied, and that maybe they had really good personalities, and there was something about them that made them so special. And that the ones that weren't successful, maybe they needed to go to school, or just go back and do some more learning so that you can be like the rest of the
Right.
realtors. But what I discovered was the ones that were successful didn't have education. A couple of them didn't even speak very good English, and one didn't even graduate high school. And I was like, what? How could this be? And the ones that were failing, there was one realtor there, he had 2 degrees. He had a bachelor's in commerce and he had one in urban land. And he couldn't sell a house if his life depended on it. And I remember thinking, this doesn't make sense to me, because I grew up with you go to school, you get your license, this is how you do it, and then you'll be successful. And that wasn't the case. So I started studying sales and marketing, and we started looking at personalities and how to sell to personalities. And I remember thinking that was kind of mean, like in marketing, how they do commercials, they talk you into buying things. And I started learning about how they manipulate your mind so that you'll buy their products. And I thought, wow, if somebody else can manipulate my mind to have me buy what they want, what if I manipulate my mind to get what I want? Does that work? And it did.
Oh,
And
look
so
at you.
as I was studying, I started applying it to my life, and everything just started lining up. And I would actually make a game out of it. I'd go, okay, this year I'm going to double my income. And I remember I went from 40,000 a year and I went to 80,000 a year. And then another year I said, I'm going to pay cash for my car. And the next year I wrote check for my car. And as you do this, as you make yourself think just like marketing, like it's a product that you're selling. If you're the product and I can talk you into buying a product, well, imagine if you want a relationship, you can have that product. It's all the same process. It's the same as marketing. It's all understanding how people think, how they react, and it's a process. And when you know the process, you can have anything.
Oh, this is great. Well, we have a question for you from Ash. And
Hi,
she
Ash.
says, how does one cope with dealing with negative messages that a lot of men think and say about women?
Ash,
That's, very common on the internet these days. There's like a toxic energy of misogyny. And I think it's starting to wear on a lot of young women.
so are you talking about in general in the public, or are you talking about in a relationship? Is she talking about
I'm gonna say she's talking about within a relationship, or
Okay.
just dating, because most of them, our audience are single. So they're meeting and dating different guys, trying to find their Mr. Right.
So if I understand this correctly, then Ash will be talking to a man, and he will he will say some negative things about
women. Right.
And so why is she continuing the conversation with him? See, what we tend to do is we get defensive, and we want to take our time and start convincing that person to see things our way. No, why do you think of women that way? We're actually like this. And look at what happens when we do that. We start getting aggressive, we start getting negative, and we actually start going down to their level. We're trying to bring them up to our level. We don't want to go down to their level. So I know that there's a lot of political stuff going on right now,
Yes.
and there's a lot of stuff in the news, and I choose not to watch it, because when I watch it, you can feel it. You can feel it. But what if I go do something positive? Why don't I go help something that's positive that makes me feel positive, because I don't want to go down to that negative feeling. If I do, they win. I have to stay positive. But how can I bring people up positively? And start thinking that way, rather than letting a negative person bring you down to their level. Think about how you could bring people up to your positive level. You know, this happens a lot. Do you ever have it where somebody's going through something really bad and they're like, you know, I need someone to talk to. And so you go talk to them and they're talking and they're bringing you down, and they might say, I need a drink. And then they take you for a drink. And the next thing you know, you're both drinking, and now you're right down there with them. Rather than, you know, I'm here for you. I understand everything you're going through. Let me know if I can help you. You're bringing them up to your positive level. So the key is to, again, when you know yourself and know where you stand, and stand your guard, you know, you're a positive person and you're a good person, and somebody like that cannot bring you down. Always think about, how do I bring them up? It's a teeter-totter. Think of it as a teeter-totter.
And that's true. And especially, you know, if you have something, I think, you know, invested in that guy, but you know, if you just met him,
if you just met him, but it's not saying that the relationship will go away. You know, you can even have a family member, when you start acting a certain way and you repeat it over and over again, eventually the other person's going to go, I didn't know that, you know, they were like that. And like, for example, there's people that gossip a lot at work. And I give this advice at work a lot, just don't gossip, right? So if you go to work and somebody comes to you and starts gossiping, and you start gossiping with them, they now know that whenever they want to gossip, they can come to you. But if you make it clear right from the start, you know, I'm uncomfortable talking about people in the office, I'm sorry, and you just go back to work, I got to go back to work. And then they come to you again and you act that way again. I'm sorry, you know, I'm uncomfortable, you know, that I want to talk about other people. After a while, they're going to go, oh, you know, that person I can trust, because I know they don't gossip. I know they're not gossiping about me. They're not gossiping about other people. And I'm going to go to her for some advice, or, you know, because you suddenly have integrity, right? So you decide how you want to be treated, and people will treat you that way.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
That sounds great. Yeah, totally. And well, you know, her question was a little bit vague, so hopefully we took the right approach.
Hopefully we got it. Yeah, that's a tough one.
If there are more questions, we have a few more minutes with Fran. You guys are a little shy today. This crowd, I'm telling you, usually
it's a tough one.
Questions like, but today they're kind of quiet.
It's hard to talk about yourself, and in a lot of cases too, when you do go inward, you know, I recommend everybody do a personality test. Have you ever done a personality test?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was just looking at my results. They're over there on the couch where I was sitting. I printed it out.
They're amazing.
I was surprised.
They're so accurate, and the thing about those is that when you go to answer them, make sure you answer them truthfully, not as the person you want to be, but the person you really are. And then when you get the results, you know, I recommend everybody take one. They're free online. And if you want to get just a little bit of insight on who you are, sometimes that's all you need, just to open the door. You know, it'll just get you
that's a good idea.
inside, and then it'll just pique your interest a little bit. And then you might want to just go in a little deeper and say, isn't that interesting how, you know, I'm an introvert and you know, I'm good at this. I wonder why I don't do this. And you'll just start questioning things. And when you really think back, you'll start putting things together. You'll start seeing a pattern from when you were a child. And, you know, everybody's good. There's nothing wrong with you. You know, there's nothing wrong with us. All it is that we don't know how to process to get results. And when we learn the process, it's suddenly so easy. Everything that you thought was holding you back really was all just in your head. It wasn't really there.
Here's another question from Let's Talk Music. It's her screen name. Does Fran think men count on women being fickle? Like they take advantage of the fact that some women do not have clear boundaries and being indecisive?
So that
They're
do
taking
men?
advantage of the fact that some women do not have clear boundaries and are indecisive, that men would take advantage of that in some way.
Yes, they do. And this was going back to what I was trying to teach my sons when we were growing up. I remember there was a girl that was just coming to the door to see one of my sons. And I remember saying to him, you know, she doesn't have very high self-esteem. Don't take advantage of her. Like, just because they're saying take advantage of me, don't do it, because the girl
Right.
is giving you permission. And I can remember my son going, well, why? She's using me. There was this argument about it. And I was like, she's not using you. This is all a self-esteem thing. So men see it as you inviting them to who you are. Everything you do is an invitation. It's either an invitation to respect me, it's an invitation to have a really healthy relationship with me, or it's an invitation for you to step all over me and don't treat me well, and I will accept everything that you give me because that's what I need right now. I'll take anything. And it's your choice. You decide if that's what you want to allow into your life. We're the ones deciding what we let in. You get that a lot. I do a lot with battered women, and a lot of them can't leave. And you sit there and you say, how can you not leave the relationship? But it makes perfect sense, because to these women, it's who will have me. See, this is the best that they can have in their minds. They can't even see the next level. And so what you have to do is, if you're unhappy and you're with a man, or you see a man and you're like, I think I deserve more. Knowing that you deserve more is one thing. Being able to see that in your mind is another. And
And I
until
think that's
you
where they
see that,
struggle.
that's where you have to pretend. Your mind doesn't know the difference of real or fake. So you might as well just pretend you're just with this magnificent man. And eventually your mind will allow you to see it. And then when you see it, you're going to start noticing those men, and you'll start gravitating towards them, and they'll start gravitating towards you. Because when you respect yourself, you're going to send out a different wavelength. And I always call it the radio dial. You can have it on level 1 where you're really muted, and some guy's going to come in and go, what, and then they'll come to you and just they'll make all the noise. Or you can just crank it and go, you know what, here I am, here's me, and they'll go, wow, listen to that music. and they're going to just gravitate to you. So the more confidence you have, the more self-esteem you have, your vibration just goes up, and
This
it'll
sounds
start
fabulous.
attracting.
This is great. Well, Fran, I want to give you a few minutes to tell, make any closing comments that you would like to make on the subject, and then to tell the viewers where they can find you and interact with you after the show.
Well, first of all, I want to say that in, almost everybody I meet, the very first thing, when I work with somebody, that I say to them is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. But that's the first thing. There's nothing wrong with you. We all have this back talk telling us that, what's wrong with me? Why can't I? There's nothing wrong with you. That's the first thing I want to make clear, is that you are absolutely normal. All that's happening is the way you're processing and the way you're thinking about things. And when you start changing the way you think about yourself, you're a miracle. Like, you are an original. There is no other you in this world. There is no other creation, and there never will be another you. You're the only one that's happening in this world. So you should be looking in the mirror every day and going, wow. When I walk in a room, people should be going, look at that. Have you seen one of those before? I've never seen one of those before, because that's how original you are. And never be another one. And when you start acknowledging how special and how original and that the enigma that you are, you deserve to attract something pretty special. So start seeing yourself in the mirror. When you look at yourself in the mirror, look in your eyes and just know how special you really are, and that somebody needs to really deserve you. And that's all I'll say about that. But but that I find that very important. So find me. My company is Dream Path Consulting. You can go to dreampath.ca. And I've got a website there, and I've got my book on Amazon, Your Life is a Movie, Scripting and Producing Your Dreams into Reality. And I also just released an online course. I actually bring my coaching into your home. And if you're interested in that, you could find that online as well, or you can email the show, and I'm sure, put me in, we'll get in touch.
Definitely.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook and Twitter, just at Fran Banting. And I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll take questions even after the show, and contact me anytime.
Yeah, that could be because this is such a heavy subject
It
that
is.
maybe people were a little shy about exposing their inner
It's specific to
whatever, right?
individuals. Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Did you hear that, ladies? If you were a little shy about exposing your stuff in the show, Fran is willing to take a question after. So
I'll take a question.
To add her contact information to the show page, so it'll be there below for everybody to find with just a link click. Great. Well, Fran, thank you so much. I know it's last minute and everything, but you came through for me, and I really want you to know I really, really appreciate it.
Nope, a lot of fun. I love it. I love what you're doing. What a fun month.
And I'm like, by the time I have a few more days, you see, I got bags under my eyes.
You're hanging in there. Way to go. See?
A couple of more days. You can do this, Deb. You can do this.
You've got it.
Okay, Fran, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So that was Fran Banting, ladies. I mean, she was great. I found her earlier this week, and really was like, Fran, please help me. Please come on the show, because I just love her platform, what she's doing, her energy, and the work that she's put in to study the human mind and behavior patterns is very unique. And she lives in Canada, so it was very timely. And they say, though, there's no accidents. There are no accidents. So I found her when I was supposed to find her, so that I could bring her to you. And that's the way I'm going to look at it. This has been a great month. We still got a couple of more fabulous guests for you coming up. We got 2 more live streams to do, Sunday and Monday. We're going to talk about Sora Vinikoff is going to be here tomorrow, talking about when you eat because you're hurting. You hurt. Your food is your emotional Band-Aid. And then on the 24th, we're going to be talking about boundaries, how to stand up for yourself and set boundaries. So you're noticing a theme here, a pattern to these videos. I'm going to keep pounding you with it. It may sound repetitive, and it may be, but if you have enough voices telling you the same thing using different words, and it's all with one goal in mind, and that is to get you to A, accept responsibility for the choices that you have made, and B, get busy making your life different. I'm providing you with guests that are going to walk you through how to do it. They've made themselves available if you have questions. I'm always here with to provide you with answers as well. You got a full support team in this crew here. They might not have all the answers, but between all these different hundreds of women, somebody should have the answer that you need if I don't, okay? So all of you, this is a group effort. I may be at the front of the pack leading you, but we couldn't do it without everybody's participation. So I wanted to let you know that. I appreciate everybody for coming here and supporting not just me, but each other in this journey this month. And you guys have been just fabulous, all right? So we will see you again tomorrow and again on Monday. And then, of course, Tuesday is WTF Tuesday. So that's going to be 4 live streams. I'm going to see you 4 days in a row. At the end of February, I don't want to see y'all for a week. Don't even look for me. I'm going to be incognito. All right. But I'll still be thinking about you. So you guys go enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time, same channel. Okay. Bye-bye.